Welcome back. The White House confirmed today that President Trump will attend Sunday's World Cup final, which we now know will feature a face-off between Spain and Argentina to end what has been a historic tournament. Soccer fans from all over the world have taken over parts of the United States, Mexico, and Canada, experiencing North American culture to the fullest. The games also kickstarting a conversation about our shared national identity, a welcome break from our otherwise divisive politics. As we count down to the final, I spoke with two of the co-chairs of the Congressional Soccer Caucus, Democrat Castor of Florida and Republican Darin LaHood of Illinois, for the latest installment of NBC's Common Ground series.
I think what we've seen with our Congressional Soccer Caucus, and Kathy and I are a reflection of that, of sport, soccer, bringing Republicans and Democrats together. You know, we worked almost 7-8 years ago on getting the bid for the United States. And so we worked collectively with both sides of the aisle to make sure we were best positioned to get the World Cup. And it's amazing that we're in the middle of the World Cup right now. And so our work on the Soccer Caucus, that isn't a Republican or Democrat issue. It's really an American issue. And we're seeing that play out with the largest sporting event in the history of the world. And by all metrics, a real success so far.
Congresswoman, tell me a little bit more about the Congressional Soccer Caucus and your relationship to the sport.
Well, I like to think of myself as representing soccer moms, soccer parents everywhere. My daughter played soccer from kiddie kickers at the YMCA up through club sports and high school. And I'm a reflection of parents and grandparents all across the Congress, all across the country, who understand the power of athletics and sports to bring folks together, for young people to learn skills, social skills, for unity, things that bring us together in a world that it seems like there's so many tensions trying to pull us apart right now. And the bipartisan soccer caucus in Congress right now reflects this spirit. All across America, they have embraced this World Cup. They loved watching the advancement of the U.S. team, but teams from every part of the world here in North America competing. It's just been a wonderful, wonderful event.
And Congressman, what do you make of this tournament so far and the way the U.S. has served as a co-host?
Well, I think there was a lot of concern going before the tournament started, but I got to tell you, since the tournament started, it has been an extraordinary success. In terms of people coming to America and us being so welcoming, along with Mexico and Canada. Of course, it's the first World Cup where 3 countries have hosted. It's the first time the World Cup has expanded from 32 to 48 teams. And we're through almost 100 matches now, and I think everybody has seen stadiums completely sold out, people embracing America, and obviously the competition on the field has been tremendous. The games have been so exciting, so energetic, and I think it just reflects well on the work that we put in to help make it what it is. Last year, Kathy and I worked on $650 million appropriations to the 11 host cities. We worked on $525 million for anti-drone technology that went into the 11 host cities in the U.S. We also worked on a visa that helped people come here, the FIFA visa waiver program we worked with the Trump administration on. So again, these were all bipartisan issues, working with the administration and us here in Congress to make it the success it's been so far.
And Congresswoman, it does seem like there are so many examples of tourists from around the world who have had overwhelmingly positive experiences here. What do you attribute that to?
They really came here to have fun and cheer on their teams. And as Darin mentioned, there's a lot of hard work that has made that possible. As each match unfolded with the drama of country versus country, with the fans in the stands, they could be confident that it was going to be a safe atmosphere, it was going to be fun. And I've loved watching all the American communities embrace the international teams and all the visitors. Boy, the Scots really captured the imagination from Boston to Miami. Watching really all Cape Verde was base camp in my hometown of Tampa, and who knew that that would be one of the exciting stories. There's always rooting for the underdog too. Something in the American spirit is always rooting for that underdog. I know that was a special part of the World Cup this year.
Are you comfortable with the role that President Trump ended up playing in the Flo Balogun red card situation, calling Gianni Infantino of FIFA and asking him to review the suspension?
I thought that was a little bit heavy-handed. I understood that U.S. Soccer was already making that request to look at the rule. But the American team really captured the imagination of this country, and that's one of the lasting legacies I think we'll see. It won't be that. It won't be the politicians that are involved. It will be the young person, boy or girl, that is inspired by watching that American team, or the teams from all across the globe that now will choose soccer as their outlet, will put down maybe their cell phone where they're wedded to this device and instead look at the opportunities that the beautiful game provides.
Congressman, how would you respond to some of those critics who were concerned about President Trump's involvement in that?
Well, I would say I think most of Americans were concerned about the red card, the way that happened, the use of the VAR, the uncertainty with the rules with FIFA. So there was collective concern from U.S. soccer and from most Americans on that. Listen, I think the president cares deeply about the American team, and I think it probably was going to happen, the overturning of it anyway. Obviously, he weighed in on it, and I think he had the right to do that, looking out for the U.S.
Let's talk about the late Senator Lindsey Graham, who just passed away recently. He's an example of somebody who did often work or try to work in a bipartisan fashion. Are there other areas or examples in which you think Democrats and Republicans should be working together right now?
Well, it's a true loss for the Congress, for the country, obviously for South Carolina. We're still in shock at the loss of Lindsey Graham and the way that he was able to navigate so many complicated issues here in the Congress and work where he needed to across party lines. So we'll be grappling with his loss for a long time to come. In terms of other areas to work in a bipartisan way, yes, there are many, many areas, but I think sports transcends politics. We've seen this with this World Cup. I think we'll see it with the Olympics 2 years from now. We also have the Women's World Cup that most likely will be here in 2031. We'll have the Winter Olympics. And who knows, 2038, we're also talking about bringing the Men's World Cup back here. So I think sports is one area to do that, but clearly there are other areas related to affordability, related to housing, and other areas where we can work together.
Congresswoman, what are some other examples?
Boy, there's a whole lot of work to do when it comes to lowering the cost of living. It is really socking it to folks, and that's why people were pained by high ticket prices. Yes, I think FIFA should have lowered the price of entry for a lot of folks, and there were troubles with the resale market, and that is a lesson learned. But overall, I hope this opens the door for more international travelers to come to the United States, because we have so much to offer, so many beautiful national parks and beaches, and hopefully this World Cup provided a window into the true America, a place where we're all trying to work together, get ahead, make sure that folks who play by the rules and are doing everything right have the opportunity to succeed, and I think that's an important message for the rest of the world.
In 2031, potentially the Women's World Cup will come to the U.S., you mentioned. What do you think the biggest takeaway from this tournament will be that will be applied to that one?
I think America can do big things like the World Cup. We're talking about expanding the World Cup in the future, maybe to 64 teams. I think after we were able to showcase all of our cities here, we can even build a bigger World Cup for the next time around. And I think, as Kathy alluded, the safety and security was most important to everything. Making sure our fans and our visitors and people that came to the United States felt safe and secure. And we accomplished that so far. We still have a few games left to go, but that was, I think, on showcase, and Americans welcoming foreigners with open arms to see the beautiful game.
Yeah, and I'd like to see equal opportunity for every young person in the country to be able to participate in soccer and athletics. Clearly, Title IX over time has been that doorway that young women have been able to walk through, and I think the success of the women's national team is a credit to Title IX. Now I hope that this World Cup here in North America will provide that same inspiration to a new generation of young people so that they learn sportsmanship and all of those important social skills thanks to the beautiful game.
My thanks to them. And tune in this Sunday to watch Spain and Argentina in the World Cup final on Telemundo and Peacock. There's more ahead on NBC News Now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.